Hello everyone, I'm Mohammed Kazmi and I'll be presenting my final project for software construction for SWENG 861. So I named my music application the Music Factory. Um, I created it and it lets users browse artists, songs, and albums. So for project requirements, I made a web user interface to search for artists, albums, and songs. Included genre, artist picture, and album cover art. Also included the amount of followers that a artist has. So in the project, I use the Spotify API. I use the client credential authorization flow for Spotify, and I received tokens from Spotify, which were used in two REST API requests, which was a GET request and a POST request. So overall functionality of the app: when a user enters a search query and clicks the search button, the application fetches data from the Spotify API related to the search query, which is artists, albums, or tracks. The retrieved data is dynamically displayed on the web page, showing details such as artist, album name, release date, images, genre, followers, and descriptions. So, host my application, I created a free account on AWS and I spun up a bucket, a S3 bucket, and that's where I hosted my HTML JavaScript program. I first tried to use AWS Amplify, but it did not work for some reason. So I was troubleshooting it. I kept getting a 404 error, but then I ended up using an S3 bucket and it worked better. So overall, the application itself is written in JavaScript, HTML, and CSS for the styling. I also utilize Node.js. Some of the tools I used was VS Code. I had to download certain extensions like Live Server, HTML, CSS support. So overall, in this project, um, I use Spotify API for all of it. I had central class perform lookups and interact with HTML. A single HTML class to take input and show output for simplicity. I use JavaScript for the primary functionality and HTML and CSS for styling and the web page. So I use client credential authorization flow for Spotify, um, where I get a token from Spotify and then we use a token in the future API calls. I also created a module that houses the API functionality. Some of the challenges that I faced with this project, um, I haven't used APIs very often, especially Spotify API. So that was new to me. Also setting up authorization to use the API, such as the client ID and the client secret, and seeing it work and get the data. That was pretty cool. At certain points when I was writing the code, I had issues of not retrieving all the data that I was searching for. And then sometimes the search function that I would search would kind of give random results that wouldn't exactly be what I was searching for. So I felt like maybe I had to clean the data before displaying it. Also, it's my first time using AWS, but it seems very user friendly, so that's definitely a plus. Just as fact of what I learned. And the overview, as I mentioned before, all the stuff that I use. So also for this presentation, I use bandicam. That's a first for me as well. Um, and then I also created a private method where the token will return a promise as denoted in the async keyword. And we use the fetch API method to call the Spotify token endpoint in my post request. This is kind of a picture of how it's going to look. kind of want to include that as mentioned in the rubric. Here is my application that is being hosted on AWS. So I was playing around with this. So one of my favorite artists is Little Baby. So I searched him, and you can see it covers up the genre, has the followers. For this one, there's no description available. And then we have some artists that I guess would be in the same genre. This is kind of what I meant by the data. So I haven't heard about this individual. He only has 20,000 followers, but seems kind of out of line with the rest of the artists in here. So I guess it's picking up keywords, maybe just the LIL part. Also, we can look up some top albums. We can see it comes up as Tupac album. No, Miley Cyrus. He comes up, comes on the top, has the followers, the images. We can also do off. Code. As you can see, so at first I had three separate files. I had an HTML file, a JavaScript file, and a CSS file. So I ended up combining it in one for simplicity. Also, the HTML document starts with the doc type HTML declaration, specifying the document type and the language. The body section contains the visible content of the web page. As you can see, I did some of the styling. Use the Arial font, change up some of the colors. I wanted to have a more modern theme, but nothing that I've seen before. So that was really cool for me as well, working with this stuff, especially with HTML and just AWS and websites in general. I also uploaded a picture. You see the source right here. We have the header. So I'm pretty familiar with HTML. Use that a lot at work. Oh yeah, so here you can see that I stored the client ID and the client secret. I had to set that up here, Spotify for developers, create an account, and I had to set the client ID and the app status. And you can see we have two API requests with a GET request and a POST request. And you can see down here we have the release date, artists. So if you do not have artist description, it's going to come up as no artist description available, no album description available. And I also have the code posted here. And that just about wraps up everything that I wanted to cover and mention. Final thoughts on the project. If I had more time or if I wanted to add on to the project, I think I could definitely hit some more endpoints, utilize the API some more, display more information. There is even mention in the documentation that I could hit playlists. So some additions to the future that might be nice, and a lot with the styling too. I didn't realize you could do so much with web pages. So that was really cool to know. And just overall JavaScript functionality. I was gonna write this in Python, but I thought I'd stick to JavaScript since that's what we learn all semester. For my presentation.